So now we're actually going to be attaching our handle to our rod. So we've got all of the parts here, and we're just going to kind of show you how they go together. So this is the reel seat. So this is kind of the center of the handle assembly. It's where you attach your reel to. And the type we're making is actually called a split grip. And so here is the fighting butt and the fighting butt cap, which goes way at the end of the rod. And then you got the other main handle, which goes just behind the reel seat. And then you got the front handle, which goes just in front of the reel seat. And then we have these winding chucks, which kind of does help clean up the look and hide the holes. So here's kind of the general assembly of what the handle will look like. And as you can see, those parts actually won't be next to each other because it's a split grip, so there'll actually be rod blank in between there. They put the little winding chucks here, there, and there, and that'll hide all of the holes. And so now what we're going to be doing what I call a test fit, which you just kind of slide all the parts in and try to get them to fit on there, see how much you'll actually have to remove, because depending on the kit and depending on the rod parts you get, you might actually have to bore out the handle parts, or you might even have to build them up and make them a little skinnier on the inside, because they don't always fit the blank perfectly right when you first get them. Or if you make your own, which some people actually make their own, to bore them out from scratch. But these ones are bought as a kit. So I'm just sliding every part on, and then if it slides to where I want it, I'll actually mark it down with one of our grease pens. Oh, that one fits as well, so I'll mark it again. So far every part has, just about every part is fit. Put on the last part, and as you can see, it doesn't quite make it all the way down to where we want it, so I actually have to bore it out with this boring stick. And so now we're going to take the boring stick, which you pretty much just start at the end. You want to be wider, and you go towards the end, so that's going to end up being thinner, and so the tip of that is going towards the tip of the rod, so we'll bore from the bottom. Pretty much it's just a stick with sandpaper wrapped around it in a spiral. You can just push it in, spin it around, and you want to make sure kind of spin the part you're actually coring, or else it'll make little divots and it won't be an even spread. And so on that one, it didn't quite fit all the way as I wanted it, so I'll bore it out a little bit more. And this can take quite a while, so this is a very sped up footage. Sometimes it can take 20-30 minutes depending on the rod length you have, because the ones we have are foam based right here. Many are cork based as well, but there we got it to slide to where we wanted it. There we go. Just gonna mark everything off where it sits, and then we'll get on to the next step. So now we're gonna be mixing up our epoxy, which is our building compound, which is Pro paste, which is a two-part. It's 1-to-1 mix of. So now we're gonna be attaching the butt cap. So you're going to go down to the end of the rod. You're going to put a little bit of our mixture on there. Since we're using a foam-based handle kit, you don't need to put too much on it because foam ones fit pretty tight, but sometimes cork ones are a lot more porous and don't fit nearly as tight. So you might want to add a bit more if you're using a cork one. So you get it down to where the rod tip gets to just the end of the cap, and then we'll clean up the excess that got pushed out the front. And when you slide it on, you always want to be spinning it. That makes sure the adhesive gets everywhere. Now we're going to put a little bit of adhesive into the butt cap. We want to put most of it on the bottom, and then it'll actually, when you push it on, they'll actually push up the sides and get a really good seal. We'll slap that right on there, and then it's nice and sealed. So here we're sliding on the little winding chuck, or that little plastic ring. That just hides the hole there and makes it a little bit cleaner. And so we'll slide that on, and then it'll push out a little bit of the paste. Then we'll actually use a Q-tip with rubbing alcohol, and we'll wipe off the rest of the excess paste, as the alcohol actually breaks this paste down. So now we're actually be adding the second part to our handle, which will be the main grip, which is just below the reel seat. So you put this winding chuck on first, because this part's going to be sliding over the top. Put the winding chuck at the spot right where you want it to end, or want the handle to stop. And you got the other white mark there, showing where the top's going to be. So we put the paste on, we slide this down in ways we want to be spinning while we're sliding down, and then you can see it pushes some excess into that winding chuck, which we'll end up fixing by using the Q-tip method with some rubbing alcohol once again. So So here we're going to be getting ready for the real seat, and since the real seat has a big gap in it, we actually have to tape under it to build up the rod. And you can use Scotch tape or painter's tape, whichever you have on hand, but you pretty much always want a paper-based tape. So you're going to want to look something like this with both of the sides taped up. So you want one to the back of the real seat, one towards the front, and you want the real seat to just slide over without having to take too much force, because you want some room for epoxy. But you also want it to be tight enough where it doesn't wobble back and forth when you push on it. So now that you got it how you like it, you can put some paste, and you pretty much want to put most of the paste right onto the tape itself, or the build-ups itself. And you want to make a nice thin layer across the whole thing. You don't want to get too excessive, or else you can also just end up getting wasted and get pushed out. So now we'll actually start sliding the real seat over, and we almost forgot, but we caught it, is that you actually want to tape on to the real seat. So where that kind of screw pattern is on the real seat, you actually want to tape over it in case anything that gets pushed out ends up on there. You want it to be on the tape, because if you get the pro paste in there, it can make it so you can't put on bigger reels, or you might have to sit there with a razor blade and cut out that excess paste if it dries on there, which can be quite annoying. So just tape that up to keep it safe. We'll put this on there, and then we'll spin it all the way down to make sure the paste gets as many places as possible. And right before the end, we'll actually clean up those extra goops a little bit, just to have less pushover. There we go, and then we'll actually clean it up and remove the tape. Now we're going to be adding the last part to the rod, which is going to be the upper handle, which goes just before the reel seat. So there's actually a little void in there underneath the reel seat, so we'll actually put some extra adhesive in there, and that'll actually help seal it in there. And then we'll grab our little piece and we'll slide it over the top, and we'll spin it on its way down like we always do. And once you got all those parts on, and before it starts to dry, you want to make sure that your reel seat is lined up with that mark you made when you were finding the spine, because you want to make sure your reel lines up with where you want to put your eyelets. And I'd like to say thanks for watching, and have a good day.